if you teach yourself bass, you're in the band. I was like, oh, okay. So I took this bass home over one summer holidays and taught myself the fundamentals. And
you probably could have done it in like a week. It is the bass guitar after all.
One day you learn G, then C. The next day.
And then you don't go to the lesson, and they ask why. He goes, because I had a gig. You know.
That's right.
Welcome to...
This is why musicians need therapy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. My name is Rich Davidson, and I'm joined as always by Eric Forbis and Craig Hendry. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Good.
Yeah. Good. Another late morning recording sesh. I like this.
I know. It works out pretty well. I don't necessarily mind the evenings, but actually I don't really have a preference. As long as it fits into the schedule, I really don't care.
My house is typically a war zone in the evenings, so it's a little quieter during the day.
Yeah. That is true. You know, I was thinking. Obviously, we're coming up on Father's Day in a few weeks, and I realized that I am getting completely shafted on Father's Day because Father's Day is also going to be my birthday. So,
oh no,
I don't.
You don't get two sets of presents.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't going to get that anyways. And you know what? That's fine. I just kind of my tradition right now for Father's Day. I don't know about you guys. Of course, you guys have younger kids, but my tradition for Father's Day is just leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I don't want to do any dishes. I don't want to cook anything. Just let me do whatever, which is usually a whole lot of nothing. It's easier to do that when the kids are older, but I would bet that would be extremely difficult with younger kids.
Yeah, I can't imagine that going over real well.
Yeah.
So, Rich, how often do they overlap? What's the math on that? Like
you know what?
6 years or something?
I don't know. This is the second time it's happened. Second or third. Either the second or third time it's happened since I've had kids. Now, I do know that I was born on Father's Day.
There you go.
But that was 1970, so I don't think they have any historical records dating back that far. So,
my oldest kid is turning 10 in like a month, so that makes me feel a little getting up there. Oh yeah.
Is that like a thing for you? Is that like something that you kind of and Craig, you could weigh in on this too. Do you kind of lament that, or is this that like a marker that you're getting older? Or it's like, wow, the time has gone by. He's 10 already.
Yeah, it's definitely a marker that I'm getting older. Annie showed me a video this morning of it was like a video of a kid celebrating his 12th birthday. And then the mom like rewinds to a bunch of old pictures about, how he used to love Toy Story and how he isn't interested in seeing the new Toy Story movie. And it's like, the passage of time. Yeah. You kind of lament, I guess, your kids being young and into all those things. But there's different things that come along with coming of age. So I'm excited for him. He's super. I know that double digits is
that's a big thing
marker.
For him.
So yeah.
And how old is your daughter, Craig? She's 8 or 9?
Yeah, she's 8. She'll be 9 in August, end of August.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is the thing for me is like we have countless, like 4K videos of her since her, the day she was born.
Yeah.
And she loves going back and looking at all those old videos and stuff. Wow. And that's what hits me the most is like, God, look, like even from 2-3 years ago, like the difference between like this period here, like 8, 9 is just 2 years has made I mean, I guess every year in a child's life is massive at this age. But even looking at videos from a couple of years ago, you're like, oh, you were just tiny, you were so little. Oh my goodness. So that's strange for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's weird for me when I look back because we have a lot of physical photographs, and of course, now everything is on a hard drive somewhere. But looking back, it's like, wow, for me, it's like, has it been that long? But I know it has been. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel old. What makes me feel old is that I'm old. I don't need a picture to remind me. Trust me. But it's just, I don't know. I think it's that passage of time that just, you see them at 8 or 9, and now they're 25 or 30.
Yeah, gosh, I can't even imagine.
And I remember, walking up the road and walking them home from elementary school. I haven't forgotten that. So I don't think about it in those terms very often, but every so often, it does kind of strike me. Wow, they're not, they really aren't kids anymore. And I guess maybe that's kind of a parent thing. I don't think I treat them like kids, but sometimes I perceive them as children. It's like, hey, you're swearing in front of me. You're not supposed to do that. It's like, well, Dad, I'm 31. Okay, yeah. They come over to the house and they bring wine and beer. I'm like, guys,
oh gosh,
what?
Yeah.
Who bought that for you?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, that's right.
You're not old. Oh, wait a minute, you are. Yeah. It's that's kind of that's like this transition, and then after that I won't care because I'll be older and more feeble. So
hey, speaking of nostalgia, it's a good segue into our topic for today. I was sort of kicking around the idea about the influence of mentors that they've had on our lives. Back to elementary schools, back as far as you can remember. I mean, I started taking formal piano lessons when I was 5, I think. So I have many years of experience with various teachers over the years, good and bad. And I feel like I've learnt just as much from the good teachers as the other teachers in many ways. But I don't know, I thought maybe it's appropriate for Father's Day to kind of be looking back and talking about those influences that we've had throughout our years on this rock.
It is a pretty smooth,
what do you
segue there.
That was tight.
I couldn't
that was
pass
tight,
it up.
man. That was like that's like a radio guy hitting the post, man. That was
my
dynamite.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that is champagne right there. What do you guys think? Who wants to jump in? I have plenty of thoughts, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Yeah.
Well, for Father's Day, and my biggest mentor musically for sure was my dad. I mean, I took piano lessons for, I can't remember how long, maybe a couple years, with Rita Gildersleeve and Mint Hill, and I enjoyed those lessons. But I've always been a procrastinator and didn't practice the way I should. And I was always the type that if I got a new song, and I didn't, have it perfectly or have it to where I wanted it in 5 minutes, and I would throw the book and storm out of the room and be like, hell with piano, But once I stopped taking lessons and just kind of, learned from watching my dad and then from things my dad would show me, that's when I really got into it, when I could kind of find my own way. But yeah, my dad was, a great mentor. And I think, as I've thought about this topic and mentors, a couple of the big things I think a good mentor has to have is your best interest in mind always. If not afraid to see you grow, not afraid to see you grow past what they can show you, not afraid to see you go off somewhere else and do something else. A mentor is always going to be rooting for you in that arena, rather than trying to make sure that they just create a clone of themselves and try and control your growth and where and where you can and can't go. That's kind of
do you think that's maybe why your dad was such a positive mentor for you?
Absolutely. There could have been no one rooting for me more than him, and every time I got better and every time I learned something, even when I learned, taught myself some songs and licks, I remember him coming in and going, God, I could never play that. Like he rejoiced in that. He felt, and that made him a great mentor.
Did you like that teacher, like that first teacher that you had?
I did. I did like her.
Okay.
Yeah, she was through the church. She was just a really nice, gentle presence, and she, she definitely taught me plenty. But I think I always wanted to learn more about putting my own arrangements on songs rather than learning the what are the main books? I can't, Alfred or something.
Oh, there's a ton. Yeah.
I don't know. One of those, but but yeah, no, she was cool too. I liked her a lot.
Yeah, because they can have a negative effect. Obviously,
they can turn you off of it completely.
That's right. So it must be a fine line for a teacher. I've taught a little bit of piano over the years, but I've generally had pretty positive kids, positive students that have enjoyed it. But yeah, you wonder about pushing them too hard or not being hard enough. It's a fine line.
And it's interesting because I think that's kind of what makes a really good mentor is finding that balance. I don't know if I have that in me, to be honest with you. But rooting for them, supporting them, teaching them, but also understanding, when it's time to push them a little bit.
That's right.
I think about a story I was reading not too long ago about the late drummer for the Foo Fighters, Taylor Hawkins. And this is probably 1994. He was just working at a record store in kind of a crappy local band. He said it was a really bad Jane Addictions ripoff band, and they were going nowhere. And a friend of his called him when he was at work, and he's like, there's this guy who's putting together a band for Canadian artist Sass Jordan. And he's a musical director. His name is Stevie Salas, and he's looking for a drummer. And now Stevie Salas had played with Mick Jagger and Rod Stewart. Actually, got to start with Rod Stewart. More recently, he was a musical director for So You Think You Can Dance and American Idol for a number of years.
Holy cow.
And so he's like, yeah, look, why not? I mean, I'm eventually going to get fired from the record store job. And he went in and he's like, I thought I was a really good drummer, and I learned the songs, and I went in and played, and Stevie Salas stopped, and he's like, did you listen to these songs? Did you listen to the tempo? Because he says, I thought I already had the gig, so I was just going to show him how fast I could play and all that stuff. He goes, look, you're wasting my time. Okay. He said, you don't know these songs. But he said, he must have saw something in him. And he's like, come back in a week after you learn the songs. So he went back and he listened to the songs, and he kind of understood what the guy was saying but he said only a little bit, because I went in the second rehearsal, he's like, the second audition, he goes, it really wasn't going well. And he took me out. He goes, look, you're not ready for this gig, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And he said for the month of rehearsals, because they were going to Europe to support Aerosmith on their European tour. He's like, look, I'm working in a record store. I get $375 a week. I get to go to Europe, and I got a bunk in the tour bus. That's a good deal for me. And he said the month of rehearsal, there were just times I didn't think I was coming back the next day. I mean, he just made my life miserable. He'd be yelling at me, you're playing too fast, you're playing too slow. And then when they got to the tour, he was just in his face every night. He goes, "This isn't a high school gig, man," and just made his life miserable to the point to where but that helped him get the job with Alanis Morissette, and then eventually get the job with the Foo Fighters. And he goes, even still, Solace will come to our shows and I get nervous. But I think, I think that balances out the fact that, okay, this guy was really, he says, he just made my life miserable that month of rehearsal. But he gave him the gig because he saw something. He goes, you have something that you can't teach, and even his poor performance on the audition, he still got the job. The guy still made his life a living hell, but look what happened. It led to a lot of other gigs. Now, some might say that that's the living hell part. Maybe that's unnecessary, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, he saw something. He saw something in this kid. But, was he too hard? Well, maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't know. I'm sure
There is that element of trusting the process, right? Even if you don't understand it as the student. That's a mentee. Is that the right word? Mentee?
I think so.
That sounds so wrong.
It sounds, it does.
Sounds like some sort of aquatic animal.
But, there's that part of trust, like, I think about this scene from the movie The Karate Kid. Have y'all seen that movie?
I
heard about it.
Yeah. I think I read about it somewhere. I may watch it on Netflix. I don't know.
But, like, it starts out, Daniel is training, by waxing a car, painting the house, painting the fence, sanding the deck, and Daniel's like, this is a whole bunch of crap, and is about to walk out. And that's when Mr. Miyagi, like, shows him what he has learned. And Daniel surprises himself with what he's able to do. But he just had to trust, the process. And then from there, the relationship changes and it gets, Daniel, blossoms after he gets past that barrier. So yeah, I mean it's tough when you don't understand why someone is mentoring you in this way or teaching you in this way, but they do have, in the end, your best interests at heart. Or maybe that could have gone the other way around, and after a really bad day, Taylor Hawkins quits and never plays the drums again. So.
Well, it's funny because this is actually I guess it's a question for you guys too, because we talk about musical mentors but I've had a lot of mentors in my life on the musical side that have really taught me some things beyond music. Do you think that's an important aspect of being a mentor? I mean, at least from a musical standpoint.
I think so. I mean, I always enjoyed teachers over the years where the topic would go all over the place, and now I'm including like just high school chemistry teachers and stuff. I always liked when teachers would give a bit of context to things or give you a bit of just, philosophy about the world or whatever. And, I sort of, the limited teaching I've done, I always like to try to do that a little bit, just take a bit of a break from the actual repertoire or the theory or whatever you're working on, and maybe give a bit of worldly context to things.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really valuable.
Because I think like one of my musical mentors taught me, probably taught me one of the most important lessons that applies both to music and to life. Because, his whole thing was, and I'm sure you've heard different iterations of it, but there's only one reason for not performing, and that's death, that being your own. But there was, what I saw in him is no matter what was going on, he was going to be the professional and do what he was supposed to do. And, I remember, he got into a car accident. His car was totaled, but he was there. And that didn't affect what he was doing, And Eric, we've talked about this too. You come in on a Friday night, you had a big argument with your wife, or your car broke down, or, some ridiculous expense that you didn't expect, and a lot of things pressing in. But when you get on stage, it's time to deliver. And I think those are lessons that go even beyond music. And those are some of the things that I have learned from a few of my mentors.
Yeah, it's a fine line, because I think you really rely on the unique relationship between the mentor and the mentee.
Sure.
And it's going to be different for every combination. And I think it depends. Perhaps it depends on the innate drive that the student has.
For sure.
And I've been doing. I had my daughter in piano lessons, and she sort of got fired from her music teacher because her piano teacher was like, she just doesn't really want to be here. She just sort of gives me attitude, and she's obviously not practicing enough. And it's really hard for me, because I'm like, oh man, I would love nothing more than my daughter to get into music, but I can't force that. Whereas when I look back as a kid, man, I was like, I just loved it. I just threw myself into music. Now I will say, I think maybe the first couple of years it was a drag, like just practicing my scales and just learning learning the mechanics of music and whatnot. I don't remember that being particularly fun. I didn't particularly enjoy practicing, but there must have been a point where I pushed through that enough and obviously got to the other side of something and found just some sort of inherent joy in it. But I was also lucky. Like, I had some really great teachers that my parents found that just were really supportive, and I think to my parents' credit, I think they were looking for teachers that because they both learned more kind of classical style piano when they were kids, and I think they were wanting, my mum in particular looked for teachers that were doing more modern methods. So I think that helped us, because we got to, early on I was playing folk songs and pop songs and learn a little bit of jazz, and the exams that I had to do, you had to do a little bit of improvisation in it and that kind of thing. So perhaps that was a little bit more interesting to me. But and conversely, like, I have a twin sister who we went into piano at the same time. I think we kept learning piano through till probably the end of grade 12, but she just never really enjoyed it as much and doesn't really play at all to this day. She's super musical, very, very talented musician in her own right, but just didn't click with the piano. And then my brother, I have a younger brother who took lessons, and same sort of thing, only lasted a couple of years and just hated it. And I think his teacher too was like, I can't teach this kid anymore.
Yeah.
He didn't touch a piano for I don't know how long. He took up trumpet later on.
Oh.
Was quite good at the trumpet, but in his adult life, he bought himself like an upright Yamaha piano, and he plays every day. And he's a really good piano player. He just sits at the piano and just sort of free plays, gets in the flow. And he's also like a mathematical, does modeling and engineering and stuff. And I think he uses creativity to kind of help his his designs and all that sort of stuff. That's a whole other topic. But between us three kids, three different outcomes. That raises the whole topic of nature versus nurture. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really grateful for those early teachers that I had. But I will say it's interesting. In thinking about it, I had a high school music teacher. He was a band teacher. Which, looking back, he was ex-military. He was a British guy, and I think he did music in the military, but just came from that pretty strict background. And he was a tyrant. He had a temper. Just yell. It was really a lot. It was quite traumatic.
That was the word that was coming to mind. Traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And when I look back at those times, like I just think of his temper and his yelling and the fear. Like I had this fear of this guy, and yet he sort of took me under his wing. I desperately wanted to play electric guitar, and our school had a stage band, which is do you guys know that term? It's like a big band, but
Yeah.
but probably pared back a little bit for high school. We called it a stage band. And he said, well, we already have a guitar player, but we need a bass player. If you teach yourself bass, you're in the band. I was like, oh, okay. So I took this bass home over one summer holidays and taught myself the fundamentals. And
You probably could have done it in like a week. It is the bass guitar after all.
One day you learn G, then C. The next day.
And then you don't go to the lesson, and they ask why. He goes, because I had a gig,
That's a great joke.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's not just black and white. Like he gave me an opportunity. In fact, he put me in our little city of Mackay had a big band, a professional big band. I mean, we didn't used to play much. There weren't a whole lot of gigs for a big band in a town of 30,000 people. But he put me in the band alongside another bass player. The band already had he was an aging double bass player, upright bass player, and they were going to sort of phase him out and phase me in. So for a while, this big band had two bass players, which is sort of strange. But he gave me that opportunity. It was an incredible opportunity. But holy crap, I still have nightmares of. I remember one lesson. In fact, I think I figured out the way to get I was going to say under his skin, but he took me to task one day. We were doing this song, and it had the rhythm. We were playing this I think the song was called Malaguena. It was like a bossa nova or something, or some sort of Latin feel, and it had these quarter note triplets in the measure that the whole band was going to play. Like everyone, would play the rhythm together, and everyone was. We were picking it apart. He'd start with the saxes and then take the brass section and whatnot. And they all sort of fell into this rhythm of going but up. And I was like, oh, that's not right. That's not yeah, and that's not triplets. So he goes, all right. And then he gets to the rhythm section. He's like, all right, rhythm section. And I'm going ba ba ba, which I'm probably doing eighth notes there. But anyway, and he's like, no, that's not right. Do it again. Bass on your own, bass on your own. And I was like, I don't know. I can't get it. I can't get it right. I just can't play it like you guys. Like the whole time knowing what I was doing. And
but you were right though, right, Craig? You were
I was right.
Yeah.
I knew I was right. But I was like 14, and these guys are in their 40s and 50s, And I was like, fuck this, I'm digging my heels in. And I was like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna I don't know what I'm doing wrong. He eventually realized I was right. He was fucking livid.
Now let me ask you, how did he handle the fact that he discovered that you were right and that he
didn't like it at all.
Didn't like it at all.
I think eventually the rest of the band figured out that he was like, oh, you are right, but there was certainly no apology. There was certainly no, it was just, and I don't know. It's a mixed bag. And he taught me a lot about I will never treat people that way. I will never treat fellow musicians that way. I will never be condescending to people. I will never take a band rehearsal that way. It taught me a lot of stuff.
This is unrelated to music completely, but and I don't consider him a mentor. He was just in scout camp one summer. We had a rifle merit badge, and so we were doing rifle shooting. And it's obviously it's pretty intense, serious environment there. I mean, you got preteens, young teenagers.
With live ammunition.
Young teenagers with rifles. Yeah. So, and he was
what could go wrong?
He was an ex-military guy, and he was mean as hell to all of us. Like we'd go in turns. We'd all shoot, and then we'd be done, and he'd go, "All right, go collect your failures," which was like, "Go get your target." It's like, damn, man. But I mean, to have, like you said, Craig, maybe what you got out of that relationship the most was how to how to deal with others with a little more, empathy or sensitivity or whatever. There is that aspect of, a teacher pushing a student and tough love, bringing out the best in you. That does happen for sure. But, a good teacher is a special type of personality that I think requires just a lot of patience. So.
Well, I remember. There were actually a couple of stories, but a lot of guys who had played with Frank Zappa call him a music mentor to them. And
he was known to be an asshole, though, wasn't he?
Well, I don't know asshole per se. I can tell you that the stories I heard from Vinnie Colaiuta and Steve Vai, the audition process was just brutal. With Steve Vai, he had a part-time job when he was at Berklee College of Music transposing Frank Zappa's guitar parts. And every time he would send him he was getting paid like $15 a page. And every time he would send him stuff, he would send a cassette of his guitar playing. And so they were looking for a guitar player. Brought him out. And the audition was just brutal. He would just ask him to do all this stuff. And then he just got to the point to where he asked him to do something that was just impossible. It's like, you can't play that. And of course, Frank's response was, "Well, Linda Ronstadt's looking for a guitar player. I don't know if you're interested." And then the keyboard player, longtime keyboard player for Frank Zappa, Tommy Mars, was like, "Come on, what are you doing to this kid?" He goes, "I'm already going to give him the job. I'm just seeing what he's going to do." But Steve I was talking about his first tour, and I may have told you this story where they were playing at a club in Albuquerque in the summer, and it was the last shows that this club was going to be open, and the owner was friends with Frank Zappa, so they played 2 shows, but it was in the summer and the club had no air conditioning. Steve I said, "Look, this is my first time on the road. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was staying up too late, drinking too much. I was dehydrated." And he goes, "During that show, anything that I took in was coming out one end or the other." And he said they literally strapped me into an appliance dolly so I could stand up. And he's like, because it was actually one of the best shows I ever played because all I could do was just focus on my playing. But he's like, at the end of the show, he's sitting at the side of the stage and he's like, "Oh, Frank is going to fire me. I screwed up." And Frank walks by and taps him on the shoulder and he's like, "Hey, sport. You look like a guy who's never been on the road before. You'll be fine. I'll see you tomorrow night." And a couple weeks later, all the musicians, Frank Zappa at his place, I can't remember, I think it was in LA. He had it was like a bunkhouse for the musicians, and this was probably like 1980, 1981. And Frank calls the house and gets Steve on the phone. He's like, "Hey, come on up to the house. Eddie Van Halen's here." And so they just hung around for the whole day and played guitar and whatnot. And when Steve was ready to kind of move on and get away and stop playing with Frank and do his own thing, he said Frank was to all the musicians was always very understanding and supportive of them going out and doing the same thing with Vinny when he wanted to go out and start playing drums with other people. Frank was super supportive of that. So on one hand, you have a guy whose, audition process and rehearsal processes were just brutal, but there was another side of him that was not only supportive while they were in the group, but supportive of them moving on beyond Frank Zappa. So that's a nice balance to have, because a lot of guys who came out of that, he had a high level of the musicians that played with him had to be at a high level. But a lot of them went on to do a lot of other things, and they credit him and that musical rigidness, but also that personal softness that kind of credited them.
Yeah, just like you said, the word's balance. You got to have the balance because, being a hard ass can certainly get results, but then you got to have those softer moments, those nurturing moments, where you, praise them or acknowledge that they're, getting better, acknowledge that you appreciate them, and then, yeah, like I said at the beginning of, when we first started talking, being supportive of people growing in different ways and wanting to break away and do something else. Being supportive of that is, huge. So, and that isn't always there. It's definitely not always there. So
yeah, because I was in a band when I was in my 20s with a guy. He was probably my top musical mentor. Unfortunately, he's no longer alive anymore. But he was a bit older than me, and he was kind of he was a musician back in the 60s and 70s, and he had a very specific way he wanted things played, but it was never heavy-handed about it. And a lot of how I approached the drums came from him. He gave me enough freedom because I was, in my early 20s and just playing ridiculous stuff and, didn't understand the concept of pocket. And he taught me that. He taught me that it wasn't necessarily, how you play a simple 2/4 groove can change depending on how you swing it. And you need to listen to other people. You need to listen to the other musicians in the band and what they're doing and get on that same page. So a lot of, philosophical approaches that I take to the drums came from that. And there were times where I'm like, why is he having me play for him? Because I'm not really the guy that he's looking for. But I became the guy that he was looking for while still being the drummer that I was. And he had a really good sense of kind of when to direct me and when to kind of let me go. And, just from a standpoint of feel, from a standpoint of listening, he was because I didn't really have drum teachers per se. Some people took drum lessons. I never did. But in terms of approaching the instrument and with the idea of, only taking as much as the song gives you, making sure that you're doing everything you can to make the other musicians sound good while keeping time, setting the groove and stuff like that. I learned all that from him.
That's awesome. That's great.
And I'm forever indebted to him for that. I've had other musicians kind of help me with some of the finer points, but I think a lot of the heavy lifting was done by him.
Well, it begs the question: Do you guys think it's important to have that disciplinarian, have that real hard-ass approach, like, because you don't really hear the stories about the nice teachers. You hear all the stories about people, being put through the ringer.
Yeah, like the guy from Whiplash or something. Yeah.
That's right.
That's what I was trying to think of. My God, thank you.
Yeah,
God,
yeah. J.K. Simmons.
Movie
my
where
God,
he yells at the drummer the whole time.
You don't even have to be a drummer to appreciate that. And see, that's the thing too. Well, let's answer your question, and that's. But I think it depends. I don't think I needed anybody heavy-handed, but I can think of a couple of drummers that I know personally that could use somebody to really kick their ass, So yeah, I guess it depends. How pliable are you?
I think it's important to have both aspects. I do think that without the tough love, and it doesn't, there's levels to that. You just didn't have to be yelling and demoralizing and condescending. Just an expression of disappointment can light a fire in the right student and be like, wow, if the student feels like the teacher, wants more out of me, I'm not doing the best I can. That can inspire them to get better. But like I said, you have to have the nurturing moments too, the moments where you give them value and give them praise, and that and different people respond to different things differently.
That's right.
That's a ridiculous
That's right.
sentence. Different people respond to different things differently.
Differently. That's profound.
Does that make sense? I think it does.
I'm lost in some sort of circle now.
But
No,
some people will respond to being yelled at and be like, "Oh hell no!" Like I'm gonna never give you a reason to yell at me again. I'm gonna be the best. Some people, a more sensitive personality, can be turned off completely and be like, "Wow, I'm never gonna be good enough." And so it's
Yeah, well, and there again, Eric, I think, and also for you, Craig, to answer the question, I think that's where good mentors and bad mentors separate themselves, because
they know
the good ones,
one to do.
whether it's a teacher or a friend, they know. And you could actually respond to both of those things, but there's a whole timing issue. If my wife is having a really rough day at home, a rough day at work and everything, I'm going to be sensitive to not. Well, what are we doing for dinner? I thought you were going to be. You have
not a time to joke about dinner.
Right.
Yeah, probably not. I learned that the hard way. But, it's like you have to have that understanding, and I think a good teacher or a good mentor knows that. They're maybe not always going to get it right, and sometimes you're going to get pissed off. That just happens. That's interpersonal relationships. But I think a good teacher or a good mentor is going to know who they're talking to, and maybe knows this person is not going to respond. I don't think you can completely ignore criticism. I don't think you can say, well, there's never a place for that, because there certainly is.
Definitely is.
But to the level that criticism rises is going to be different for everybody, I think.
I mean, I was just thinking there's so many parallels with parenting, which is where we started with all this. But I find that with my daughter. Like, how much criticism do you give about anything, schoolwork, whatever, attitude, blah, 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 list goes on. And then, like parenting, you're a product of your own parents, so I'm sure, these real hard-ass teachers are a product of the teachers that they had, I'm thinking of another, even in the dueling pianos world. I mean, I started training for doing dueling pianos training back in 2009, right after I had moved to Texas, and I met these guys that were getting trainees because they were expanding their dueling pianos company. And the older guy that was training us he was a tyrant. Like, man, when he got angry, he got livid. And I mean, I can even remember playing sets, and he'd be at the bar with his arms crossed and just a dour look in his face, just scowling at us like, "What are you doing?" And it was just so intimidating, And then now I realized the irony in that. I think I was about to say but I wouldn't be half the dueling piano player I am today without that training. That's how we always that's where those sentences always go. Oh, but I learned so much, and wow, what a great, it's like, yeah, but did it have to be that? Did it have to be that way?
Well, yeah, I think we celebrate sometimes those things that are unhealthy. We talked about this when we did the show on hustle culture and grinding, how we celebrate the exhausted musician. I think about bands I used to listen to. I know Rush is a big one now because they've reformed and all that. But back in the day, for almost 10 years, it was album tour every year. They had an album 1974, 1975, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, all the way up to 1984. And it was album tour. And we're like, oh, they paid their dues. They're road warriors. I'm like, no, that's actually terribly unhealthy. And they will tell you that now. It took them away from their families and whatnot. So we celebrate that. But I think we, as you kind of alluded to, Craig, I think we celebrate those kind of hard-ass mentors, and maybe too much. You say, well, I learned so much. Yeah, you might actually learn more if they weren't such dicks.
If you weren't scared too, like you.
Yeah, I also. It was a traumatic. I mean, it's literal. It's literal trauma. It doesn't have to be. It can be as subtle as that.
Sure.
It's literally a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Now on the other side, there is, there's a responsibility and things you have to do to be a good mentor, but to be a student or a mentee, that just doesn't sound right. You have to.
It really doesn't.
Such a funny word.
Yeah, it makes me think of. Eric or Craig. It makes me think of manatees, and all I can think of when that is they eat their own poo. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, well,
my daughter will be thrilled to know that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't tell her. I wouldn't tell her that.
But there's responsibilities as a good student. There's responsibilities on that side too. It's your responsibility to.
Yeah.
Be open to criticism. It's your responsibility to practice and work. It's your responsibility to want to get better. Now a good mentor will kind of bring that out of you, but it's a relationship where there's responsibilities on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and look, I will say there was one of the trainees
wasn't holding up his end of the bargain.
Well, he just couldn't get. That style of training just was like, the guy was like, no, fuck you. And I think it ended up with my boss at the time, that guy, holding him up to the wall by his throat.
Oh dear!
Love it.
After one gig.
Julian Cannabars are not strangers to fights, and a lot of times it's between the players.
Yeah,
indeed, absolutely. So that was the last of their relationship.
Exactly how I feel when I hear zombie or creep. Okay, we won't go there.
No.
Well,
and it's maybe one other thing is too is like for me it's. I think there's an element of respect. Like I think
Yes.
I've had mentors who good, like, what if you just cast their personality aside, if I saw them unto themselves being good musicians, knowing their shit, like, that went a long way for me, you know.
Of course.
Now, I've had mentors who were terrible and weren't that great at music, and that's just like, oh dear Lord, that's tough. But I'm still not sort of condoning the disciplinarian tactic, but there is, there's if I've had respect for their musicianship, that goes a long way for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Kind of covers a lot of the warts that might come out when they lose their temper or just are intolerant.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
good topic, guys.
Yeah, it was a good one. I'd a lot to think about with that.
Looks like we're up against it, so we'll go ahead and close things out. But it was a good discussion, a lot like last week's show, which is really good, and I want everybody to listen to it. Thank you for listening. If you have any ideas for shows, let us know. We've talked about it before. We would love to incorporate that. That would be super cool. And
absolutely.
We're on all the usual suspects: YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. So check us out. Subscribe, follow, like, share the show. Leave us comments if you want, and that would be fantastic. So for myself, Eric Forbis, and Craig Hendry, we'll catch you next time.